Yo. So I have with me Randy Gibson. I'm Ronnie Gibson. We're identical twins. We've been meditating for 20 years plus together. Not together. Some of the times we're together. So about 10 years plus a piece we've been meditating, and we wanted to share, hey, is it worth it? Is this something that you should be doing in your lives? And yeah, we think it
Definitely,
is.
definitely. The biggest hurdle, I guess, is just getting over doing it in the beginning because we have this thinking mind, and that's really one of the biggest challenges to overcome is just this autonomous thinking mind that's been going on for your entire life, and you have all of these habits and neuroses and triggers in your environment, and it's just constantly triggering this thinking mind. And so when someone tries to sit down and meditate, it's but the boredom is almost incomprehensible. You just can't deal with it.
Mm.
And yeah, go
And
ahead.
I was thinking the thinking mind doesn't want you to change it, or the ego, the thinking
Exactly.
mind, they're all in there with it together. Once you start sitting down and observing, then that ego realizes, oh, this person or consciousness is trying to change me.
Yeah.
let's start throwing in excuses of why we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the biggest, honestly, one of the biggest challenges in the beginning is just disassociating from your ego, from those thoughts. Like they
Mm-hmm.
are not you. That's like the biggest hurdle in meditation because through our entire life, you've been one and one with those thoughts. And then overcoming that is one of the biggest hurdles. It's it changes your whole identity, really.
It's a very tough concept to realize when you're if you're in it. I mean, it was a combination of things for me, of realizing that my thoughts aren't me, like the thoughts that are coming through aren't generated by me, whatever me is. But I think when we first started sitting down in the Japanese Culture Center 10 plus years ago in Chicago, and we started out with some Zazen type of meditation. And I think that was definitely one of the first things to start realizing, because you started observing your thoughts and then letting them pass, and then continuously sitting with uncomfortableness, not only uncomfortableness in your mind, but also physical too, because in Zazen, you're not supposed to move really. Your
Yeah.
leg starts falling asleep or you get an itch. You're not supposed to itch it. You're supposed to deal with it. And the same thing goes with your mind. You observe it and then just don't react to it and let it pass. And once I started uh, that thought come through of like observing my thoughts rather than getting lost in my thoughts of
Hmm.
something, a complaint comes through, or oh, your foot itches, you need to itch it. This is the thought that comes through. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I don't need to itch it. I can sit and eventually it'll pass and I won't need to itch anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Zazen was one of the first things, that meditation, that got me to realize, hey, I'm not my thoughts.
Yeah. That's the biggest that's the biggest hurdle. I've talked to people and I've tried to explain that concept to someone who's never went ha, hasn't started going down this path yet, and it was a very challenging concept to wrap their head around.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you and I experienced that disassociation with the ego. I don't know if it was first in meditation or hearing some like the gurus talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
like Alan Watts. Someone listens to Alan Watts, that you understand this point clearly because he gets very deep into it, what I would call spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
the word spirituality, which we can get into. We
There are
will.
many variables for sure. I think you're on to something with Alan Watts and just all the meditation gurus, like even Thich Nhat Hanh and
Ram Dass.
Joe Dispenza. A lot of these folks are
Yeah,
sharing similar type of philosophies.
yeah, yeah. And I would say now when someone asks me, you know, how do you meditate or why do you meditate or what benefit you get, and I like the one word I like to use now is just awareness. And and that, and I think disassociating from the ego is the first step of awareness. It's like,
Mm.
oh, this ego, this thinking mind that's associated with identities, associated with all of these things are just thoughts. Like every one of your identities is just like a piece of clothing, if you will, and and then but they're just kind of stuck on you, and you got to disassociate from them. That's awareness. You just keep becoming more aware and more aware and more aware and more aware when you're sitting in a like you know, a meditation. One of the reasons why you sit in a meditation and close your eyes is because it's easier to control your environment and remove all those triggers that's going to fire off the thinking mind. But then what you want to do over time, and I think we've done where we used to meditate every single day, have a set practice, have an alarm that goes off, and initially we went to the Japanese meditation center and did zazen, but now, and we've done like silent retreats and stuff, but now it's just a part of your everyday. You want to get to a point where you're meditating throughout your life, and when those thoughts come in, you're aware of them. And this is easier said than done. It's not like we're perfect. You know, I still fly off the handle with anger or emotions or whatever, and you're one and one with your thoughts and your emotions. But what you want to do is become aware of those thoughts and emotions as they're happening. You're not going to remove them. That's another misnomer with meditation, is you're just going to like, the thoughts are going to stop coming.
Yeah.
You know, the thinking mind's going to stop, the emotions, you're just going to be this very spiritual being that's perfect. Like you see in maybe a movie where they're sitting there. And I think Pema Chodron, another follower of, I think she's like Zen Buddhist, is she once said, you know, she's written many books on spirituality and meditation, and her granddaughter went with her on vacation, a 9-year-old granddaughter, and within her controlled environment that she had always had, she was able to have awareness and be this guru. Uh, but then as this 9-year-old came in, it just it provided a difference in her environment that triggered off a bunch of emotions. You know, you have a whiny 9-year-old who's like resisting her authority, and all of these things, right? And then she just laughed in the book, or and talked about how, like, she told her 9-year-old, now don't go tell anyone what grandma how grandma reacted
Yeah.
on vacation, because she's supposed to be this guru. And I think Ram Dass also talked a lot about that. He said, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family,
Mm.
right? And it's like, because this is a very difficult uh, path to be on, and it's never ending till the day you die.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest benefits that I noticed when I started meditating and throughout my previous company, I worked for about 12 years, but when I started out, as we were teenagers and in high school and college, we were known for being argumentative. We were known for being kind of hotheads, emotional, uh, reacting to things before we thought first. And I kind of shifted. I worked for this company for 12 years, and from the beginning into the end, most of the people that knew me at the end thought I was this very mindful, high EQ person, right? And that never seen me react. So I like shifted my whole uh, like view of what people thought of me. You know, at first it was get
Yeah.
arguing with people, getting fired up about certain things, and then now I'm this mindful high EQ person. And I think that's a big testament to meditation.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of science behind this. There's a book called Altered Traits, and who's the author on that? Oh yeah, Daniel Goleman. Altered
Hmm.
Traits is a great book, and it essentially just says, hey, all they were trying to do is figure out, can yeah, meditation is good in the moment, in the effect, like immediately after you feel calm down, less stress, the like. But does it actually alter your traits for the long term? And
Hmm.
what he found out is it does. In
Mm.
one of the studies, they were looking at your prefrontal cortex, part of your brain, is like the control center. And then you have your amygdala, which is like the stress response part, fight or flight part of it. And what they notice with longer term meditators is there was a stronger connection between the control center, the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala. And so you had a stronger control of your emotional reactions. And I've noticed that even, and then the longer, because I was estimating, because they were using by how many thousand hours,
Mm.
and the higher you go up it, and it just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That's why you see these yogis that don't respond to anything. They're just sitting there
Yeah.
on a hill, and they, people are walking by, they could just deal with anything. But they would put meters on their head, or whatever, wires on their head, and then they would test them by showing them like this picture of this gross something,
Mhm.
or like something that cause a physical reaction, and the brain part of the amygdala part would not light up as much as the others. They would have way less, lower reaction to what they probably previously in an earlier life reacted too strongly, similar to
Yeah.
what I was talking about at my work. But even us, I estimate we probably have 600 to 1,000 hours in 10 years, which doesn't
Okay.
sound too much, right?
Yeah.
Because I just factored average meditating about 10 minutes per day.
Hmm.
I know a lot of times, sometimes we went longer, 30 minutes to 60 minutes, especially certain parts of our meditation uh,
Did you say
days.
6,000 to 10,000? Did you say 600?
600 to 1,000 is probably
Over,
around what we are.
over 10 years?
Yeah. Because you just figure you average 10 times
Oh, 600
365.
hours. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And then, but there's even, so like you said, we're not perfect. And reading these studies around 1,000 hours, that's kind of like almost the beginning
Yeah.
part of it, right? And like the big ones were like 3 to 7,000 hours was real, when it really starts to,
Okay.
you start to see a benefit. So it
That's
made me want
interesting.
to start ticking my time up a little bit on my
I re
meditations.
I remember as you were talking about your journey, that's cool to hear, like the journey of like you're at Schneider for your last company for like 15 years or however long it was, and so there's like a journey you saw there. And one of the things I distinctly remember with like getting married and having, living with someone, because I think we started our journey when our current wives were still our girlfriends. But I remember having more uh, kind of an a better like understanding and relationship with my emotions, and
Mm,
I would get into these like tit for tats or something like you do with your significant other. And I remember having just being like way more in tune with my feelings, to the point where like, I kind of it's weird to it's I'm gonna say however it says in my brain right now, but like we were more masculine, than all of a sudden you started feeling like you were more aware of like the feminine type emotions,
hmm
where like you were, hurt, or uh or whereas like early in our life, our masculine like habitual responses were always just like, oh, you just kind of suppress it, and whatnot. And now I
hmm
was able to like hear and feel an emotion that came up in like a tit for tat, and say like, oh no, I don't want to feel that way, and being vocal with my significant other. significant other. And I think it was definitely like, I remember it being difficult
Hmm.
and like working through those emotions.
That was one of the big things I realized on those tit for tats. I saved myself and my wife so many arguments just by like biting my tongue when previously I'd have probably reacted. It was right on the tip of my tongue and I caught it. Right. That I think
Hmm.
meditation helped me a lot in that arena of just I'm emotional reaction. Previously, younger days, I'd immediately react, but then I would start to catch a lot more. And I'm still not perfect. Every now and
Oh,
then,
for
one
sure.
lets loose, and
Yeah.
and we get in a little tit for tat, and I regret it later. But I think that's going back to the awareness, mindfulness. That's what mindfulness is all about. Is just trying to be mindful of those thoughts and as they come in. And a lot of times, those thoughts aren't very beneficial. But if you're aware of them, you can determine if they're beneficial and if you should act on them or not act on them.
Yeah. Let me see. I think I had a quote around uh, the. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah, the Ram Dass said the thinking mind is what gets us in trouble,
Mm.
and Ram Dass wrote wrote that book, Be Here Now, and in I remember the story from the Be Here Now book, the famous spirituality book that he wrote when because he traveled to India, and there was this gentleman like taking him through this trek through India. I remember, and Ram Dass was then it was Richard Albert, but now it's Ram Dass. And I remember the gentleman like his thinking mind was firing off. Ram Dass's was, and the guy he'd be like, "Oh, it's raining. Like, oh, where are we going? Like, how are we going to get here? Blah blah blah." Or I'm cold, I'm hungry. Over and over and over, and just thinking mind. And the guy would always just check back and be like, "Hey, be here now. Be here now." He just kept repeating it, repeating it, repeating it, repeating it, and to the point where then he finally realized, and then he later on down the road he wrote this book, Be Here Now, about the whole concept, and it's just that simple phrase. When you start getting down in the meditation spirituality path, people talk about presence. Um, I have a quote up here by Alan Watts. It says, "Stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence." And this is what all the gurus kind of talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the awareness that you want to try to get to in meditation, is just get all the way to this presence. The thinking mind pulls you out of the present, and you want to get to that um, place where you're present and just completely aware. Uh, and that's very, very challenging. And it takes, probably 10,000 hours to do it. God only
Yeah.
knows what it takes to do it. But, we're not like these gurus walking around with in immediate presence. But I would say if you have in a 24-hour day, if you have, let's say 20 opportunities to, or like 20, maybe we're like in the past we would have 5 moments of presence, but those start to tick up even
Mm-hmm.
higher as you
Mm-hmm.
as you practice more. And I think that's, as most people who would be listening to this understand, like when you practice, you, and put discipline in your life around that awareness, that meditation, then when you get into those moments in your everyday, it starts to change your habitual responses. So then you are now able to like be aware when then all of a sudden someone personally attacks you, or uh, there's something in your environment that triggers an unconscious response. And then when it gets to your consciousness, you're aware of it. So then you just kind of like let it kind of happen to you internally. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where you want to get to. You have this rush of just emotions and uh, either like neuro responses or physical responses, and you just kind of want to like observe it
Mm-hmm.
and let it pass, because that's something they always talk about in meditation too, and in the circles, is like you basically want to become the surfboard in an ocean. Just let the
Mm-hmm.
waves pass, because they're going to come. Like the wave, you can't. What's the what's the thing Alan Watts always talks about with the water? You can't.
stop the ripple. Like if you try to, if there's ripples on a pond, anything that you do to try to stop them or change them is only going to make it worse. There's going to be more ripples and cause
Exactly.
more chaos.
Exactly. That if
What?
you take that into your meditation daily world, that's exactly how it is. You're not trying to like fight your thoughts or fight your emotions or anything. You're just trying to like, oh, there they are. I'm gonna sit here and enjoy the ride, or not enjoy the ride. You're gonna just be on for the ride. Let the
The be
storm
here,
pass.
yeah, the be here now philosophy, I think was a big shift for me. Combined with, I remember reading Thich Nhat Hanh's book Miracle for Mindfulness, and a lot of what Thich Nhat Hanh was similar to do was all about, yeah, it's great to meditate, but you need to take those learnings into daily life interactions, or it's irrelevant, right? It's like you can meditate, but if you're not shifting that awareness onto actual life, and to me, kind of what you're saying of being here now, because you get caught up in your mind and then you get lost. It's like when you're sitting in a movie, then next thing you know, an hour and a half has went by, and you're like, what happened? Because you're like caught up in the consciousness of the movie. And one thing I remember is just taking walks, and I'm still uh, um, try and practice this. Is just when I take walks, I was just trying to be fully aware the entire time
Mm,
by noticing trees around me, the way they're shaped,
yeah,
flowers, maybe smelling a flower, and just noticing everything around me, noticing the houses, the lawn care, this dog that's barking, just trying to be. And then another one like is eating, being mindful when you're eating, so that thinking about what you're going to do next at work, just really be in the moment of eating. What kind of flavors do you taste? This there's a little more salt or whatever it is, and just trying to be mindful in every single moment of life. That's what, to me, that's what be here now, and what Thich Nhat Hanh was talking about. And I think that's, if you can get to a point where you're experiencing and you're in the moment and you're mindful as much as you possibly can. And like you said, it increases with time. When we first started, maybe 2 moments per day. Now you're getting a significant amount more mindfulness, be here now moments.
and it's easier said than done because boredom is something that is just very difficult to your brain. Is it's very difficult for your brain to handle because we've gone through our entire life from 2 years old when our mother or grandma bought us this, shiny toy that rattles or is digital and is going off the handle, and it like increases our dopamine, right? And like it takes us out of this boredom, this presence. Everything just takes you out of this presence, all the way from video games to now gambling or whatever, your fix is. And uh, I think that especially in today's day and age, we with a smartphone, it's just so easy to just you get yourself out of that boredom and kind of distract yourself. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you go and back into that, everything in you, honestly, even just saying it, because you and I did a silent retreat, and like even just saying it made my body feel a little uncomfortable on this call right now, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like the boredom of it is just sometimes like incomprehensible to even. But then you got to overcome it, and you're like retraining and rewiring your body to say like, oh, boredom's fine, like what's the big deal? Like if you put a baby in boredom, we are nurtured into not being able to handle boredom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When they do studies, we've read a few books about tribes that were the civilized people kind of engaging with the tribe that was uncivilized, and they're observing their behaviors, and they would be fine with boredom because there's not a bunch of distractions besides hunting and gathering and games and music or whatever, and they were able to deal with it. And I think that's something that's just very challenging if you're on this journey to overcome. But sitting down in the beginning when you do a 30-minute meditation, it's rough. It's
Hmm.
definitely rough to get over it, but you have to just keep practicing, adding discipline, and then you'll be able to handle it. I mean, I've had multiple people, I don't know about you, Ronnie, but I've had multiple people be like, "Oh, I can't, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it.
Hmm.
I don't know how you would do that," because they have so much anxiety.
Yeah, I don't have enough time. I couldn't do that. And to me, there's a quote around the mindfulness folks around that. It's like the person, I forget what it is, but essentially it's like the people that say they don't need it the most
Mm,
because their thinking mind is taken over,
hmm.
and right, and like it needs they need more control of that monkey mind, and
Yeah,
the monkey mind's in control. It's just jumping around and they're going nuts, and
yeah.
they need to control it more. Should
Uh,
we?
yeah. What were you about to say?
I was just gonna say, should we share some like basic practices of
I,
things that helped? Or
I want to say one thing. Yeah, we definitely should. I want to talk about spirituality just for the hot second too. But um, the book actually, this book I wanted to mention was from Sam Harris that you and I read about spirituality without religion, is one thing that kind of took me over the notch as well. And then uh, he has an app. He had a meditation app too that we practice. I remember he Sam Harris was huge on taking it to your daily life. He was huge on like spreading meditation. It's not just a sitting act, but then he was also huge on um, just taking that awareness concept and just taking it all the way as deep as it can go.
mm-hmm.
And
His guided meditations on his app were very powerful
same,
for me early on of just trying to.
it
He would,
articulates what you need to do very well.
yeah, and he'd just be like, okay, where are you at, right, when you're sitting in a meditation? Is like, where is it up in, is it in your head, you know? He's
Hmm.
like, well, or is it up above your head, is it behind you, where is it, where are you, where are those thoughts at coming
Yeah,
from? And what you realize is it's not in your head, it's, you don't know where it's coming from, but these thoughts are just shooting all over the place, and they aren't you. And I think he did a very good job of doing that. That's
and
why
he
I
talks
think
about,
guided meditations are powerful.
oh, 100%. Especially in gurus, or gurus or teachers, because they can articulate things in a way that you can't. So then when it's happening to you,
Mm.
you're able to be more aware of it. And he still has the app, I believe. Do you remember what it's called?
It's the same as he changed the name of the book, right?
Oh, waking up. Waking up.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Waking up, spirituality without religion. One of the things he talks about in that book is around psychedelics, and we've experienced with psychedelics, and that's like meditation. Psychedelics is basically like a rocket ship meditation, is the
Mm-hmm.
way I would explain it. And so and meditation is just like a long boat ride that has no motor, and you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is you can rocket ship yourself and experience that, of like these thoughts aren't you, the ego is a delusion, all of that, and it's just like bam, you can take something like psilocybin or mushrooms and get into that state. Uh, and he talks about that, and it was a powerful book, because when he experienced with those as a young adult, he was able to take his meditation, combine, etc. You and I
Mm-hmm.
had those experiences as well. uh, but a lot of you don't need it, but it's something that you can. Uh, and when I'm not advocating for it, but it's something that a lot of people do. But it's just like a rocket ship to getting to a complete awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and you just realize instantly that, oh, this whole thing is is just a delusion, and that's not really me. I'm behind the veil.
Yeah, it helped me definitively know that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
had a sense of knowing, and that's what it really helped, because I think some people meditate and they'll give up,
yeah.
but and then just kind of stop doing it and never do it again. But to me, that's what the plant medicine did for me. Was like I had a sense of knowing. It was like, oh, this is 100% true,
That's a
and
great point.
and then I could go back and do the meditations and know those facts.
Because the ego can delude you in your normal day to day, but it can't under those,
Yeah, exactly.
those plant medicines.
Yeah.
The ego can't like fight it.
Well, it's famous for the ego death, right? You
Yeah,
dying before you die. The ego death, it kills it almost instantaneously sometimes, and you're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Richard Albert, formerly Richard Albert Ramdas, has another book on exactly that, about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it's based off the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but it's exactly that, where that ego death.
mm,
One of the things I want to talk about with spirituality is that uh, it's confusing. Like, just because you're religious doesn't mean you're spiritual, is one of the things I want to talk about.
mm,
And a lot of times, especially in the modern age, in historically, though, they were the one in one. Like, if you think about like Jesus or the Buddha, or the origins of like most religions, it's like spirituality is one on one. There was this elimination of all ego, intense humility, loving of all people and things. And then in modern times, religion gets, and you and I have talked about this on other videos, but religion kind of gets turned into this doctrine. It's more following doctrine, a belief system, and not so much as like practicing
mm,
core tenets of that, of what the central message and principles were. Say, like, using Christianity as an example, it's like, instead of love, humility, um, God, etc., it's like, I got to read this chapter, I got to go to church on Sunday, and it's like, what are all my peers doing? You're not following these things, right? And it's turns into this very judgmental thing, where that's not spirituality. And when you break down like the etymology of spirituality, it's like this Latin word, means like breath or spirit, and then so spiritualists, and then there's another one, spiritus. It's from that spiritus word. And so you keep breaking it down, and it's like breath is in soul, is what spiritus means, life force.
mm,
uh and then spiritus comes from another word, spirare, which means to breathe. And and so, like, breath and soul were like these original, like, same ideas. um Breath, life force, spirit. And I think, like, when you get into that judgmental uh doctrine, yada yada yada, this is all thinking mind, right?
mm, mm,
Going to back what we're talking about. And then when you come back to the spirit, the life force, the breath, it's like you're coming back. And that's why in meditation, breathing is very important, because it can take you out of that thinking mind and get you back to that, your spirit, your life force, whatever that is. And some of the quotes, like, we read a book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. One of his quotes is, spirituality means waking up. uh, and waking up just means what we've talked about. It's just it's getting beyond this attachment to thoughts, to this ego, to this all these identities you've accumulated over time.
mm. And I think when you practice spirituality, I think you're getting in more in tune with the experience itself. right? A lot of religion pulls away from like actually experiencing God, if you will, or your own soul or consciousness. So it pulls you away out of it because you're in that thinking mind. When you get out of that thinking mind and come back, you know, and actually experience it yourself, that's when you have the knowing, is when you experience it yourself. And to me, that's what spirituality is all about. That's what, and you can have both of them together, but a
Yeah.
lot of times they're separated. And I think getting to a more spiritual um, person is to me the goal in our life, or our soul's purpose in life, is to become more spiritual.
Yeah. 100%. And I think just to get a little bit deeper, uh, before we end this, is that at the bottom of the well of all of this is God. And so once you go deep enough and you keep becoming aware, and so you realize you're not your thoughts, and then it's like, oh, I'm Randy Gibson. I have red hair. I'm from this town. Yeah, these are all physical traits, but they're still not you, right? Like this, when you go deeper, this is still not me. Or I have a temper, or I don't have a temper, or I'm good at basketball, or I'm not good at basketball. All of those things are all just manifestations that have been created over time. And so if you go deeper, then that's not me, then who is me? And then you just keep going and going and going to the point where you feel a oneness with everything, a oneness with, and then it ends up being God, is really what it is. And that's why when you get into these spiritual communities, when you get into especially Eastern religions, they talk about this a lot, or Christian mysticism, when is still a fabric of Christianity, where it's still like religion and spirituality is still one to one in those Christian mysticism circles. You can get into the state where there's a universal oneness with, like, we are God when
Mm.
you get down to the brass tacks of it. And
Yeah,
you
or like a subset of God, like we're a piece of God, right? We're all the same,
God
I
is
guess.
the ocean, we're a wave.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
so
yeah,
we're
yeah. Which Alan Watts kind
talks about.
of,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Once you eventually get down deep, that is the ultimate discovery. It's like, hey, you know, we are a part of God. We are a subset of God. We are a subset of consciousness, if you will, and very powerful. Uh, yeah, Joe Dispenza's work, I would say, is a good one. Alan Watts's work are great. Either their books or any podcasts or YouTube videos that they're on. Those are very powerful for me to help some of these philosophies and concepts sink in.
Yeah. Uh, Sam Harris, Pema Chodron, Jack Cornfield, um,
Like you said, Anthony De Mello, Awareness, and
mhm,
what's the other one? But
Untethered Soul, Michael Singer.
yeah, Michael Singer, Untethered Soul, one of my favorites. Very, very powerful book.
Yeah, he's here. Let me read off a quote by Michael Singer, and it's around meditation. It says, "When you contemplate the nature of self, you are meditating. That is why meditation is the highest state. It is a return to the root of your being, the simple awareness of being aware. Once you become conscious of the consciousness itself, you attain a totally different state. You are now aware of who you are. You have
Mm.
become an awakened being. It's really just the most natural thing in the world. Here I am. Here I always was. That is spirituality. That is the nature of self. That is who you are."
Love so much quotable stuff in that book. He's powerful, powerful stuff.
One of the last things I want to mention is just around how you and I listen to this podcast about how meditation in its modern state is just like, oh, you know, bam, you and I jump off this call, go sit down, meditate for 30 minutes, and everything's fine. Whereas he talks about in the traditions, the ancient traditions, that's not how it used to be. Meditation wasn't something that was just alone. You practice it in combination with other rituals. And so, like, honestly, when you and I did the Japanese Zazen, you didn't just come in there and start meditating. It was an hour-long experience.
Hmm.
And the first thing we would do is we would do chants. I forget what we do.
You
What we
would
did.
bow, then
Okay.
do some chants, right? You would
Yep.
bow in to enter the space, and
Yep.
then we'd do some
Chants. We'd walk
chants.
around,
Hmm.
and do like a walking meditation. Then we would sit for 20 minutes, and then we would do something after. And so, one of the things, especially if most people work and you get into these stressful environments, and so you're kind of stuck in this world for a while. And there's the concept of sympathetic nervous system, which is your stress reactive state, and then there's your parasympathetic nervous system, which is more just your peaceful state.
Hmm.
And these ritual practices would kind of like get you out of that, and it takes a while to get out of that. So if you work all day, to get out of that sympathetic state where your brain's firing off everything about like what you have to do at work, and you're in the stressful and anxious state, it takes like 5 minutes just for like breathing to slow and heart rate to drop. Then you're like all your like neurotransmitters like cortisol and adrenaline start declining. It takes 60 minutes for that. And then your like whole system becomes deeply relaxed like 1 to 3 hours later.
Mm.
And so adding ritual to this and then meditating is actually very helpful. A ritual could be as simple as a walk, of course. You
Hmm.
don't have to be screaming chants, but um, that's just something to add to your practice, is like do a ritual, then meditate.
Yeah, but start it start out with whatever's easier, right? If it's just like
Yeah.
I remember at my office at work, I would just go into a side room and meditate for 5 minutes, really quickly, just to try and tune out of everything and just um, slow down my monkey mind. And
Yeah.
I think that was always powerful. But to me, all meditation is just recognizing, being aware of your thoughts, right? You just
Yeah.
boom, being aware. It's like, oh, okay. Then you kind of,
Get lost, come
yeah,
back.
yeah, you'll get lost, and then you'll come back to your breath, or whatever. And I think that's so. Yeah, if we were to share some just basic advice, I think Insight Timer, one of the best apps, because it's
Yeah.
free, and you can get a lot of different types of meditation on there, and it
Yeah.
has a simple timer on there that I always still use to this day. And uh, guided meditations I still use to this day every now and then,
Same.
but they're very, very powerful at the beginning.
You
And
mentioned one already, Waking Up by Sam Harris. That's a brilliant one.
yeah, and then loving kindness meditations were great. I don't do them as much anymore, but I should continue popping in, where you have um, just negativity around something or some person, and you putting love out there, and
Yeah.
that really helped me. And loving kindness about myself too, because if you're a successful person or achieving a lot of things in your life, you're very critical of your own self. So there's a lot of internal negative dialogue, and having loving kindness on myself was very, very powerful for me. And how I done that was just based off of those guided meditations on the app, where it was just
Yeah.
saying, telling me how to do it, telling myself I love you. That those were very powerful for me, that I remember. And um, like sound bowls, and
Mhm.
there's different types of sound waves. I forget what the other one's called, where you're meditating and you kind of just you tune out everything, and you get into the meditative state quicker when
Yeah.
you're listening to those.
Binaural beats and
Yeah, binaural beats. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, even sound bowls. Like I got a sound bowl right here. I should use it more often. It's kind of like Pavlov's dog or whatever, right? It's like,
Mm.
did you hear it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then it kicks you in. It's like kind of a ritual to
Mm.
kick you into that state, pull you out of that sympathetic nervous system.
Which is what
Yeah,
they did at the Japanese Culture Center.
yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And they did blocks as well. The block thing. Yeah,
Mm.
That's great. Yeah, like you said, like, you know, you can ignore everything we said and just like try to practice once a day. Like if you're beginning, it's like a minute. Say I'm going to practice a minute a day, and all I'm just going to do is just sit there and just try to be aware. And
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts are going to rush through, and you're going to feel like you're not succeeding, but you're succeeding if you're becoming aware.
Mm-hmm.
Even becoming aware of, hey, I'm trying to get better and meditate, is step one, and you've already done it. So then it's just a slow growth.
Mm-hmm. And then do it. I was my most recent boss, my new job. I was just saying, I was like, do it on the way to work. Don't turn on your radio and just observe your thoughts on
Yeah,
your way to work and observe things around you and just be more mindful. And next time you walk your dog or walk around your block, leave your phone at home and just be more aware. Notice your thoughts and then just bring it back to the birds chirping or the beautiful flowers. And I think once the more you do that, uh, the stronger that connection of the prefrontal cortex to the amygdala becomes.
yeah. Good luck on your journey.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having us. If you're still here, appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Later.